Hi, it's mid-April and we're all starting to look at getting our BAS returns put in and logging into the ATO website so that we can get all the COVID bonuses we're talking about. But there's a catch. If you're using AUSkey before, you won't be able to log in. It's been replaced. AUSkey is dead, myGovID lives. So as we said, AUSkey is dead. It was decommissioned on the 27th of March and the ATO has replaced it with a completely new type of system, and it's really important to understand that it is completely new, because the trap that a lot of people have made is to presume that AUSkey was version 1 and mygov and RAMS was just version 2 of the same thing. But no, it is a completely different way of doing things, and we need to understand how that works. Now, in the old AUSkey system, your business, which is probably you if you're just running your own show, you applied to the government for AUSkey and they sent you a file that you installed on your computer. So now the application for that was where you registered yourself or one of your staff as somebody that needs to access the government resources, usually ATO, but any one of the other government departments on your behalf, on behalf of the business. The file that you then got was your credentials to say that that was you and you were authorised to do that. There are some subtle but very important differences between AUSkey and myGovID. There is something called RAM that we'll talk about later. That's the Relationship Authorisations Manager, and that is the equivalent of that section there. That is now split out, and this part here, which is the accreditation section, is using myGov, myGovID, and that is the one that verifies the approval. So when you go to log into a government website now, particularly the ATO, but I also know the Health Department, and there's probably about 30 other government departments around Australia which are doing the same thing. The authorisation is set up in RAM, Relationship Authorisation Manager, by the business, and that is controlled by the business. But to verify that you are the person that the business has authorised uses myGovID, whether that's you or your staff, and myGovID is personal. It belongs to the person, it does not belong to the business, whereas RAMS does belong to the business and is organised by them. Now, this is a critical difference. Because we assume that it was a direct replacement for AUSkey, a lot of people have actually set up myGovID using your business phones, business email addresses, and all of those sorts of things. Now, myGovID can also be used for your personal tax and all of your other personal bits and pieces, and I've been told by the different departments that that will be more and more the case as they go on. Some of you may know about myGov. That, I believe, will be replaced by myGovID. So what you do not want, particularly if you are an employee, is to have myGovID set up on a company phone using a company email address. If you have it on a business device, what it literally is doing is giving the business control over your personal information. If you want the business to control that, then fair enough. But if you want to get in contact with the ATO, for example, sometime in the future about your own personal details, there will be some level of control held by the business you work for if you're using a business email address or a business mobile phone or tablet, because they will control how you can get in and use myGovID. So it's not recommended at all that you use business equipment for myGovID. RAMS, on the other hand, yes, go for it, but not myGovID. What we want people to do is to go through and we set up myGovID. Set it up on their own device. That is the biggest change that we need to understand, where a lot of the mistakes are being made. Now, once myGovID is set up, the next thing that we need to do is for the business to authorise that person on behalf of the business to access the government resources in RAM, Relationship Authorisation Manager. And that is definitely a business component, and that must be part of the business and stays that way. In setting up RAM, now the details for doing this are on the ATO side. Even though this applies to the whole of government, ATO is the one which is setting it up and they are managing it, because ATO are probably the biggest users. So you go into RAM, and if you're the principal person for that business, they call it the principal person, I think. Whatever it is, you're on the ABR, the business register, as the contact person for your business. You must need to be there. You go to that site, you set yourself up in that, which is relatively easy. Oh, by the way, you need to have your own myGovID set up first before you do that. And once you're in there, you can then add in and say, these people, including myself, including my bookkeeper or whatever, have the authority of this business to access government departments on our behalf. Now, before we get to that, this is critical. You must set up myGovID for those people first. The myGovID must be set up on fairly recent hardware. That's just a government limitation. They've decided that. It must be set up on a phone or a tablet. You cannot set it up on a PC or a laptop or anything else like that, and that's their decision. Also, from a business point of view, the question has been asked of the people setting up myGovID, what if my business does not allow me to use personal devices at work? Their response, the business needs to change their policies. So it is very clear from the people setting this up is that you need to do things the way the government has set it up. You need to change to them, not the other way around. Okay, now, when you set up myGovID, there are some very critical things that you need to get right. It is very, 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 very pedantic about a lot of things. Spelling in particular. You will need to put in a personal email address. That is how they contact you. It does not have to be the same as your business address, and it's recommended actually that it is different, as we were saying before. You put your name in there, and however you spell your name is the way that you need to be known everywhere else that uses myGovID. So if you have a hyphenated name, some people put it as just one long thing. Some people put it with the hyphen in the middle. Some people put it with a space in the middle. It doesn't really matter what you do, but once you decide on that, you need to be consistent, always. If you've got a name which is often shortened, like Jenny and Jennifer, if you use Jenny on myGovID, you use Jenny everywhere. If you use Jennifer on myGovID, you use Jennifer everywhere. Those things are absolutely critical. Now, on myGovID, there are two levels. There is a basic and there is a standard level of identity verification. Now, all you need to do is to log in, register yourself, and you have basic level. The sad story with basic is there is not much you can do with that. There are a few things, but very little, and from a business point of view, ignore it. There's nothing of significance that you can do from a business point of view. Now, the standard is equivalent to the 100-point ID check. So you need to supply 2 of 4 identification things, and for most people, those 2 things are their driver's license and their Medicare card. Those will help get them through. While we're talking about that, do your driver's license first, because your Medicare card has got multiple people listed on it, and they have found that if you use your Medicare card first, the multiple people on it confuses the situation. But if you put your driver's license in first, it knows who you are and it picks the right person out of the list on there. So these are some of the things that they are still working out and sorting through. Another really, really, really important thing to understand. You must make sure that you have it right before you go and start looking at upgrading your verification to standard, because once you connect an identity document, your driver's license, Medicare card, passport, whatever, that is held in the servers, and it can only be used for that email address and that spelling of that your name anywhere. Even if you wipe your phone completely, start again, reload it on, you cannot verify yourself with a different name against that. So you must get those typos sorted out before you start. Really important. Now, there are lots of instructions on the website with the ATO. I'm not going to go through with detail of how you physically do it, because one, they're there, but at the moment they're in a state of change, so they'll keep moving. But it's relatively easy to do and to follow through. Now, there are some cases I have come across where people's identity documents are different names to what they've had for all sorts of historical reasons, and it's caused a real problem. One fella I know, he's been going for over a month now. He has had to get a new Medicare card and a new driver's license all reissued in the same name so that he can use myGovID. Of course, there was this big argy-bargy because driver's license wanted the Medicare card to verify who they were, Medicare wanted the driver's license to verify, and there's just this big argy-bargy circle going on. So just be aware, these are the sorts of things which can happen. That's the extreme case. Most people, that just goes straight through. But anyway, so that's setting myGovID. That is the first thing that you need to do. Do not start on setting RAMs up until you have myGovID sorted out. Now, once that is done, and you know exactly what the spelling of the name is for that person you want to authorise, you then go into RAM. As I mentioned before, first step is to get yourself in there as the principal person. You can also set up an administrator. So we have the principal, which is only one, and you can have multiples administrators. So if needs be, you can pass the work on of managing this site to others. You go and connect your business to RAM, so that I'm the one which is authorising work for this particular business, and then you or your administrator will find out the name. So let's say you have your bookkeeper on there that needs to access the ATO site. You go to the bookkeeper, find out the exact spelling of the name that they used on there, and you add that person in exactly that way in RAMS. You add an email address in there, which will most likely be their business email address. They do not have to be the same. At that point, it will then send a notification out to that particular person, and that will come out as an email from the ATO. So make sure that people are aware that it will be an ATO email which is coming to them. On that email, first thing they need to check is that the spelling of the name on the email for them is the same as you have recorded on their myGovID. They must match exactly. Second thing to be aware of is I sent a gobbledygook authorisation code that they have to type in. It expires in 7 days. So it's plenty of time if things are ready, but if you're one of these people that have got to go and redo their driver's license, for example, you're going to run out of time on there, and that will need to be reissued. So they're the sorts of things that you do need to be aware of. Okay, so these are the things, just to summarise, that you need to be aware of. The names must be exactly the same on both myGovID and in Relationship Authorisation Manager. That's one. People who use myGovID need to have some relatively recent hardware. Old phones, probably more than about 5 years old, I don't know where the line is, but they just do not work. The docs are stored on server. The connections to the docs are stored on the server, so you cannot change them easily. If something really bad happens, you're going to have to go through a really long process and manually get everything reset and start again. So make sure you get your connections right to your driver's licence and Medicare card, get all that information right to start with. Once you authorise staff and send them the notification, they have 7 days in which to get the authorisation confirmed. And lastly, this is the headache for businesses. The government has set this up. They said these are the rules, you will follow these rules. And if you need to change your business policies, then you need to change your business policies. That's how it is. We have no say in it. They are still developing it. They are still changing things as we go, which is one reason I didn't do any actual demonstrations of how it works. It is a better system than AUSkey. It's much harder to defraud, but there are still lots and lots of teething issues that have to be sorted out. So the RAMS myGovID combination, when it works fairly well. But if you don't get it right to start with, it can be a real nightmare. So just take the time to get it right, get it all sorted out from the word go, and that'll save a lot of your hair and headaches.